Why do programmers prefer dark mode? Because light attracts bugs. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this fast tutorial on how to install Visual Studio Code on Windows and Mac. I'm going to show you how to download it, how to install it, and in a later video, I'm going to show you how to set it up for basic HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. By the way, this is part of my playlist of an entire series from How to Learn Web Development. Okay, so let's get started. Search in Google or in whichever browser you want for Visual Studio Code. So it's not Visual Studio. That's a different thing. It's also for Microsoft, but for Visual Studio Code. This is a code editor. The other one is a IDE. It's a more advanced programming software. So let's go to their website, or you could just click on download. But I want to show you something. So this is basically a Blanco code editor. When you install it, you have to update it with a couple of add-ons. But we're only going to concentrate now on the installation process. First of all, downloading it. Now, here is the download for Windows. If you're on a Mac, it's going to automatically appear for a Mac. If you want to choose a different platform, just click right here. It's really small, but it says other platforms. Click on this and you can select, well, also Linux. Or if you want to download it for a Mac, you can also download it from here. But usually it should automatically recognize, just check this, it should automatically recognize what kind of operating system you have. If it did not recognize, if it didn't recognize it, then you can select it from here. Okay, so let's go back. One more thing before we download it. There's a second version of Visual Studio Code. It's a green version. You can download it from here. It's the Insider Edition. The difference between them is that the Insider Edition has updates that are not necessarily unstable, but they're a little bit more unstable. So the Insider Edition gets earlier updates, but this edition is the stable one. So I would recommend downloading this simple Starter Edition. So it's going to ask you where to download it. Just select where you want to download it into Downloads and save it, and you're good to go. Now, the downloading process is pretty much dependent on your internet speed, the internet connection speed. It's going to take a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds. But because it's really small, 100 megabytes, it should just take a couple of seconds. Let's just open it up, click on executable, click here on accept the agreement, click next. Now you can create a desktop shortcut, I would recommend it. And also add it to open with code, add it to open with code when actions explore discovery. So this is going to basically make it easier to open typical HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React files, JSX files, even Python files, whatever files you want to open with Visual Code. This is going to make it much easier. You can also click on register code as an editor for supported files and add path to required shell start. I'm going to come back to this a bit later. So next, and this should install it. Okay, so installation is done, and you can basically click let this checked if you want to automatically open it, and click finished if not. So I'm going to leave it checked because launch it from your shortcut, which is on your desktop, or you could just click on start and search for Visual Studio Code. You can see I also have the Insider Edition and started from here. And there we go. Visual Studio Code should start right now. On the recent files, this is my recent file, you shouldn't see anything. So let's go over a couple of basics. On the left side is where your navigation is. You will see here Explorer. It's basically where all your files will be. I usually are smaller. You can open files from here. You can clone repositories. More on this later. I'm going to create a Git and Git hub crash course. I'm going to teach you there how this works. If you want to clone repositories, you want to upload to repository, and so far and so on. Now, this is the Explorer search. You can basically search in your code. If I would have here any kind of file, I could search for specific keywords, like where is, you search for specific tags, search for specific functions. Basically, whatever is opened here, you can search for it here. Now, this is your source control. Again, this comes back to Git. Don't have it installed, but you can basically hook it up here. This is debugging. This is when you're running programming language like C++, C#, also Python. This is where you start your debugger. This is when someone asks you, hey, where can I hit play to run my program? Yes and no. We're writing here web applications, so you don't have to run them. They're running in the browser. Okay, and this is the most important tag because we are installing from here, then later on extensions, which are essential for your Visual Studio Code, for your workflow, for your speed, for your efficiency, for everything. Because Visual Studio Code, when you have it installed, it's blank. You see, I already have 23 of them installed, but you shouldn't see anything if you're freshly installing Visual Studio Code. We're going to come back to this a bit later on, or in the next video, we're going to set up Visual Studio Code for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So for basic web development. Okay, a couple of things. So from here, you can open up files, editor, you can change a couple of settings. But the most important thing is actually from where you're going to run your terminal. So down here, I view, and and terminal, you're going to see the shortcut. When you're on a Mac, it's going to be Command tilde. If you're on a PC, it's going to be Control and tilde. So this will open up the terminal. Boom, there it is. Normally you will have PowerShell or CMD, so it's basically the same thing as this little fellow right here. So for example, if you want to check for if you have already Node.js installed, so just type in node-v, that's the version. It's going to tell me I have the version 20.11.1, which is not the newest one, but I'm going to upgrade it. So you can do the same thing. Oops, sorry about that. Down here, you can type in node-v, hit enter, and it's going to give you the same thing. Also npm-v. And but if you don't have Node.js installed, you're definitely going to need it for web development. Check out my previous video. I did there a tutorial on how to install Node.js and npm. So this is kind of the basics. You can also create here an account, hook it up to other accounts, hook it up to your GitHub account. And from here is where you're going to check for updates. Down here, this little manage tab, which is just a bracket sign. And well, that's pretty much it for the basics. So if you're going to create a new file, you always have to save it in a folder, then just open it up. We're going to come back to this when I'm going to show you how Visual Studio Code works and how to set it up for basic HTML, CSS, and JavaScript development. One last thing before we go, Copilot is now free for Visual Studio Code. You just click on Copilot, this little fellow right here, open chat, and there we go. We have Copilot. Tell me what is HTML, and Copilot will answer without even creating an account. HTML is hypertext markup language, and it's a standard markup language used for this is HTML. Okay, we're also going to talk about HTML later on. We're going to create the HTML crash course. So hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. It will help me out a lot. It really helps out my channel. Also subscribe to the channel if you want to learn web development, because I'm NorbPM and I teach web development. Happy coding. Catch you next time. Bye bye.